And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
Alright, EPA chamber pressure looks good.
Right up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Echo down phenomenal.
Fighting downside, FD off. Bring in, FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? We don't need any more of these.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to NSF Live. It is our usual Sunday show where we talk about all the fun things that happened this week in space and answer all of your questions related to it. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be your host for today's affair. I am joined, as always, by an absolutely fantastic team to help break it all down, including Mr. Alejandro Alcantara Romero. Alex, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm a bit excited after, we had these 33 Raptors engines, 33 Raptor engines lighting up last week, and definitely my brain is already fried with that view. But yeah, definitely very excited for what's up next. That's what we're going to be talking about, right?
Yep. And we are also joined by Trevor Sesnick. Trevor, how's it going?
Yeah, I can't complain. I can't believe launch was only just over a week ago, and here we are ready about to discuss Flight 3 and some exciting other events that happened this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking forward to the next IFT at this point, right? Thank you, SpaceX. But we will get to that. Of course, we have a couple of other fantastic topics. We've got that Starship upgrade coming that we'll talk about that Elon tweeted. We've got some exciting things in the world of other Methalox rockets going on too. But we are going to start actually over in Europe with Ariane 6. Now, we are going to go over all of these topics, so if you have questions for Starship, things like that, though, we're just going to ask that you kind of hold off until we get to that part of the show. So if you can ask questions kind of related to what we're talking about for now, that would be the absolute best. And a reminder, you can do that by tagging at NASASpaceflight in chat with your questions. So let's start things off with the much delayed but still anticipated Ariane 6. That is Europe's next generation of its current launcher, which is the Ariane 5. Their goal was to finally get a full duration test of its main engine, the Vulcain 2.1, and that they were able to finally, after a bunch of delays, couple days, then later in the window, test it, and it almost ran for the full 8 minutes. It ended up running for 426 out of the 470 seconds they originally had planned. Now, this is just the liquid fuel engine underneath it, not any of the solids that are mounted to the side, of which, again, there will be two variants once it does start flying, the Ariane 6-2, which is the 2 solid rocket motors, and the Ariane 6-4, which are the 4 solid rocket motors on the side. So it's a start. We're finally getting closer to Ariane 6, which has kind of been delayed for just a little bit, right? I know Alex over there in Europe, there's been hopefully some excitement around it.
Well, here it's not like in the US, you know how things go here. That spaceflight is probably not the hottest thing in the sense of, even within the European spaceflight sector. Ariane is not really the most exciting thing in the horizon, but it's something at least. It is definitely something that we're doing at the very least, which is something, I guess. Pardon me for the redundancy. But yeah, and then obviously we have all of these other commercial spaceflight operators coming up. RFA, PLD Space, all of these other folks with the little rockets that obviously will take a while to get to the point of building a rocket as large as the Ariane 6. It's still not as large as say Starship over here, but it is definitely a big rocket. Capability of more than 20 tons to Earth orbit, more than 10 tons to GTO, things like that. So definitely those commercial operators are a bit far away from that point. So in the meantime, we're gonna have to stick with the old guard for just a little bit more. But definitely very, very interesting. And now we're waiting on that final date to be released by ESA and Ariane Group of when is this thing gonna launch? Because they've been saying for a little bit that, well, we're not going to say when it is launching until we have completed all of these tests. Now, they still have one more test to complete, one that is going to be done on Germany with a second stage, but that second stage has already been qualified. This test is just sort of like, an outlier kind of thing, test how it performs in nominal situations and see how it responds. So it's not something that is completely needed for the flight, and therefore, with these last tests, now they're going to go ahead and talk about when is it going to launch, and I believe that is going to be on November 30th. And I saw the whole press to a call to media and things like that. It was like 9 a.m. my time, which is, I mean, it's still daylight, but I like the bed.
Yeah, that's like 3 a.m. here, so I hear you.
Exactly, that's even worse for the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ariane's going to launch when they originally said in 2016, and 17, and 18, and 19, and 20, and 21, 22,
Rockets
23,
being
24.
delayed? No way.
I know, what
That
a
never
shocker.
happens.
No. It is interesting, though. Again, you've had customers that were looking at Ariane 6 that are kind of choosing other rockets just because, hey, it's not ready yet. And a reminder, all of this testing, by the way, is done out in French Guiana in South America there. So it's European in South America. It's a bit crazy with that. But, I mean, it'll be exciting when it does, because the Ariane rockets do have a great legacy. I mean, Ariane 5 most recently launched the James Webb Space Telescope, so it's not like it's, a newish rocket or a rocket that doesn't do much. It's got quite a powerful punch to it still. It's just interesting to see that it's taking as long as it is to get to the next version.
Yeah, and also as you mentioned that some customers are waiting for the Ariane 6. ESA itself is also waiting on Ariane 6. We saw just recently comments of the basically the European Space Agency talking about launching Galileo on Falcon 9 precisely because so they used to launch them on Ariane 5. The problem is Ariane 5 not only went away, it's also that these were launched on a version of Ariane 5 that was even retired earlier than the final version that we saw. The final version was the one with a cryogenic upper stage, which was only able to light the engine once. The other one that they used for deploying Galileo with Ariane 5 was one version that had a reliable upper stage. It had hypergolics instead on the upper stage, so it was able to relight multiple times in orbit compared to the cryogenic upper stage. So in recent times, they had been launching those on Soyuz. The problem is Soyuz, it's kind of a bit of a problem these days, right? And so ESA is no longer using Soyuz. It is instead relying on, or at least expecting that Ariane 6 is going to come online soon enough. Problem is, it's not going to come soon enough for Galileo, though. So there's going to be two pairs of Galileo satellites are going to be launching on Falcon 9 next year. One around the springtime, and then another one towards the late summer. So these things are starting to get to the point of like European GPS satellites. That's basically what Galileo is, going on US rockets. It's like sending a GPS satellite from the US out to Europe in maybe in the 90s or something and say, hey, launching on an Ariane 4 or an Ariane 5 or something. Right? That would be crazy because it's like it's pretty much national security concern. It's a military payload and it is launching on a foreign rocket. And so that is top level decision to approve that kind of stuff, and definitely need to have to do that, because Ariane 6 is probably not gonna come online, maybe not even on the summer. We're gonna figure that out in 4 days, but definitely probably not gonna happen until the second half of next year. So we'll see.
Yeah,
And then we're
I guess
seeing
along
there
those
all of the evolutions that they're planning for Ariane 6, which we'll see if they happen.
Well, yeah, that. So I guess the main question, I know you kind of had your answer there, Alex. So Trevor, I'll put it to you. Why bother with usernames? It's asking, when launch?
Yeah, like Alex was saying, oh boy, Alex and I going to disagree on this. Ariane Group is trying to not give too many dates until they've completed all of the testing. But if I was to guess, probably like Q3 of next year, somewhere in there.
Wow, Q3. So you got Alex saying mid-year, right, Alex?
Yeah, I was saying in the second half of 2024. It's my current thinking.
Yeah,
I guess Q3 is kind of within
yeah, it's like
the second half of next year. Okay, so we're not in total disagreement. Okay.
yeah.
But you're supposed to fight in fight mode. Come on.
We should rename it to Hug Mode.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go with Q2 just to be hopeful, although it'll probably end up being Q4 knowing all of this. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what they end up doing with it, and that kind of goes along with some of the additional questions here of basically what's the use purpose of this. I know CEO Fishing Fun was asking, will Ariane 6 send anything to the ISS? Any thoughts on that?
I can go into the first half of the question, then I'll let Alex talk about the ISS side. The use case is really for Europeans want a European ride to space, just like how Jim Bridenstine famously talked about sending American astronauts on American rockets from American soil, or whatever the quote was. So Europe wants something similar to that. Obviously, this won't be crew rated, but it'll at least be allow them to place commercial satellites into orbit. And this really comes as they're preparing for a more radical redesign in the next iteration, which will include reuse. So I think this is really just kind of a stepping stone from Ariane 5 to their reusable rockets in the future. And it's just to be slightly more competitive, but one could argue that even with this, it'll be really, really hard to properly compete with Falcon 9, New Glenn, Neutron, any of the reusable rockets that are out there, or will be out there.
So Alex, doesn't seem like ISS flight's coming soon now.
No, it kind of doesn't look like they're going to be launching anything to the ISS with Ariane 6. They do have launches to Leo, though. They're actually the most launches that they have in their sort of manifest for Ariane 6 is pretty much Leo flights, and that is with the Kuiper constellation for Amazon. Amazon, when they basically send out all of these contracts, they send out to Blue Origin, ULA, but also with Arianespace with the Ariane 6. And so now they have like, I think it's somewhere around 2,000 flights with Kuiper. So those are all going to be launched to low Earth orbit with Ariane 6. And who knows? I think actually that those flights are going to be with an upgraded version of Ariane 6, which will have the boosters are going to be stretched a little bit. So they're going to have a little bit more thrust. And so I think on the previous video, there was like all of these set of upgrades that they want to do. So there's one that they call Block 2, which is the extended solar rocket boosters. And they have one where the upper stage is made out of carbon fiber. So it's very lightweight and improves performance and everything. And then they have another one with liquid solid boosters, and then the Susi spacecraft on top. So yeah, all of the stuff that Trevor said about all of the potential upgrades and reusability paths and things like that, Ariane Group is sort of looking into that. The thing that I'm more interested on, though, is not Ariane 6 going reusable, but rather starting a reusable rocket from scratch. And Ariane Group is working on that, but on the sidelines, so to speak, with a subsidiary that's called Maya Group. So Maya or MayaSpace or something like that. So MayaSpace is starting to build a reusable small sat launcher, and then from there, their goal is to like go to a bigger rocket. But that subsidiary is basically from Ariane Group, just like Arianespace is also another subsidiary. And so Arianespace is the one with the Ariane 6 and everything, but then Maya Group is sort of like more sketchy skunkworks kind of thing where they're working on more updated technologies, basically on the reusability, methalogs, stage combustion engines, and things like that.
And that actually leads to another question that I saw here, which will help bring us a little bit onto our next topic too. Along the lines of that, Khaled asking any plans for European reusable rockets. So as you mentioned, they're working on building that, but there's also another company that their eventual goal is also to have a reusable first stage, which hopefully they'll be having their next flight soon, and that is RFA. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, Rocket Factory Augsburg, I think is the pronunciation. But
Yeah,
definitely,
as an
they're
American,
working
I
on
wasn't going to try
that.
that.
I mean, I'm European, but I'm from Spain, so I don't know about German. That's a thing for Adrian. But definitely, you can see there the payloads for the second flight of their RFA-1 rocket, and that is basically flight to sun synchronous orbit, as you can see there, SSO, 500 kilometers up. And so they already have the sort of initial payloads, at least. I'm not sure if they already had announced any other ones prior to this, but definitely very interesting because this puts them sort of in the way of, now we have at least a customer for the second flight. We need to get to more in the future, but at least now they have that consolidated. Definitely looking forward to the first flight. I believe they're targeting somewhere in the first half of next year, with this second flight being towards the end of next year. So definitely very, very interesting because again, RFA, big plans ahead. They have this amazing engine, the Helix engine that they have for the rocket, which is a stage combustion engine, which is sort of new here in Europe. It's very typical in Russia, in China, and in the United States, but it's not very usual here in Europe. So stage combustion Kerlox engine, even on top of that, because it's a bit more complicated. And so definitely very, very interesting. And again, very looking forward to this and many others. We have also ISAR Aerospace, we have Pangea, we have PLD, we have also from the UK, I think Orbex is one of them. There's many companies working, at least trying it, which is good because the more people trying it, the more chances we have at having a really good European launch sector, which is healthy.
Exactly. And along those lines, one of the ones you just mentioned, actually, Spectrum, they just recently been working on their engine testing, and they're also hoping, I believe, to launch next year with their rocket, which Hank Hill would very much approve of because it is liquid oxygen and good old-fashioned propane. That was one of my worst impressions ever. I apologize. But it's, again, this market is continuing to grow, and it is nice to see some of the European partners getting in on the game, because for a while you basically had two players. You had the United States and NASA, and then you had Russia and Roscosmos. So finally, it's nice to see some of these other launch vehicles getting into the game, seeing these other propellants that end up being used now. For example, propane in this one. You've got all the Methalox rockets, which we'll get to more of that in a bit. But it's just interesting to see how much this is evolving into the world of new space. And I did see a very interesting question as well. I don't know if it's still in the queue, but Trevor, I'll put this one to you. With all these rockets coming in, especially the European ones, and the whole idea of reusable, is this the end of expendable rockets? Do you think they're going to become extinct?
It's certain. I mean, eventually, absolutely, they'll, have to be. I don't want to beat a dead horse with a stick, but Elon's analogy.
Don't say that with Chris.
Throw away, yeah. Elon's analogy of you don't throw away a plane, you don't throw away a car, is, does apply to rockets. And long term, I think we're going to look back and be like, we seriously used to throw those away. Like, why did we do that? That's crazy. But I think we're still a good bit away from that. Like, especially from at least not expending any stage. So I would say probably within about 10 to 15 years, basically every rocket will be at least partially reusable. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these legacy companies, like ULA, Ariane Group, and some of the Chinese rockets are still the last ones to be expendable. But I think all of the new rockets, if you want to enter the arena, you basically have to be reusable. And it's increasingly, or what's becoming increasingly more true, is that you even have to be fully reusable. And right, we've seen Blue Origin is going after a fully reusable rocket with the Jarvis program for New Glenn. Then there's obviously Starship, which I think we'll talk more about later. I think there's stuff to say about that.
Oh yeah,
Maybe.
definitely.
Yeah, and then there was Terran R, which was originally going to be fully reusable and now is partially reusable and then will be turned into a fully reusable rocket. So the tides are changing, and I think you definitely want to have a reusable vehicle if you want to compete.
I will say a certain NASA spaceflight official in chat said their ears perked up, and also may or may not have sent a "come at me, bro" gif in the back channel about your horse reference there. So it was nice working with you. Hope you find a good job after this. There we go. Yeah. I do want to hit some support that we've been getting here. I really genuinely appreciate everyone that does this throughout the streams. For example, we have Annette, aka Bideford, with the $50 tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com, which is another way you can support us. Saying, now that I know NSF gets to keep all the funds via the tips, I'm going to do this along with gifting memberships. Thank you all. Well, thank you for the support. And speaking of memberships, especially gifted ones, RC Horseman, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Coco Cats, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Methane Man, again, a lot of names we see here all the time. It's genuinely appreciated. Thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. John Depker, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. I need like one of those panels where you just press a button and it goes 5 gifted, 5 gifted. Chris W, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Chris W, thank you for gifting a second Red Team membership. James getting an item from shop.nasaspaceflight.com saying happy holidays. Well, happy holidays to you too. I mean, it's not even December yet, but gotta love the Christmas sweaters even now. And then here's a question from Musical Wolves asking, are any of the scheduled payloads transferred to a different rocket? Trevor, have we heard of any payloads that were scheduled to go on Ariane that have already been on a new rocket?
I am not 100% sure. This could be a good one to put to Alex.
Well, not on Ariane 6, but Euclid, for example, was supposed to launch on a Soyuz, and because of the whole thing in Ukraine, the war and everything, basically the European Space Agency switched away. They stopped flying on Soyuz, and so they needed to find another rocket. It could have launched maybe on Ariane 6. The problem is obviously, Euclid was already ready to launch this year in 2023, so there was no way it was going to be ready, to launch on, there was no way Ariane 6 will have been ready to launch Euclid. So they went straight ahead and went with Falcon 9. There's an upcoming mission as well, Sentinel-1C, which is also going to be launching on a Falcon 9. Then the Hera satellite as well, or Hera. I don't know how to pronounce that one, but it's okay. So mythological person. I don't really know.
It's Hera.
But yeah, it's Hera. Okay, so there's like at least 3 scientific missions, Euclid, which has already launched, Sentinel-1C, and then Hera. Those 3 either we're going to be launching on Soyuz or on Vega, and Vega is also failing here and there. They've also realized, at least I think for Sentinel-1C, that the satellite might not even fit on the Vega C rocket, which is interesting. So definitely, all of these potential payloads that are not going to be flying on Ariane rockets, but are going to be flying on SpaceX.
You know what they say, Hera today, gone tomorrow.
Boy, I knew you were going to do something.
It's been 28 minutes. I had to finally get a pun in here. Come on.
I bet Sentinel-1C will be able to see your puns from space.
We will Sentinel-1C, if that's true. Anyway, we have John Depker with an interesting question and very important. Vulcan or Vulcane? Preferred pronunciation? Well, I did study French for a while, so technically I guess it would be Vulcan, but I don't know. I guess however you want to destroy it and Americanize it.
My response is this.
Trevor?
I took 4 years of French in high school, and I do not remember any of it, so I don't know if I would trust my judgment here.
I had
I
5
studied
years.
French for
and I
12
don't
years and I don't
remember
remember it.
Yeah,
Boy.
it's
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would be Vulcan is the official French pronunciation of it, just like Arianespace. But yeah.
the more letters
Someone's
you
saying-
ignore.
Someone's saying I'm closer to France than that person in chat. Mind you, I'm closer to the UK than to France. Just saying. Because we have Gibraltar here. Okay.
I think
Come
I'm closer to the... I don't know which I'm closer to since I'm in the southeastern United States. But anyway,
Let's not
continuing
dox
along.
ourselves.
And Sean Howard saying, do we think the tradition of paying companies like Boeing, Lockheed to build rockets that never go into service is going to end? I think that's a bit of a stretch there, saying rockets that never go into service. There are definitely ones where, they try. They'll try to get it, and something happens and it ends up scrubbing, or they end up modifying it. But there hasn't really been a rocket recently where they've gone ahead, gone through all the build of it, and then just said, you know what, let's not fly it. I mean, Starliner is going to fly eventually. Virgin Orbit did fly for a while, so, even in those senses, I guess, it's a little bit unfair in that way in the question. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the part that's definitely over is the old way of doing contracting and having cost plus rockets. I think SpaceX has shown that that's just not needed anymore. And, cost plus made a lot of sense when you have a program like Apollo, where you're like, we have no idea how much this is going to cost because we've never done anything even kind of like it. But now that we've been to the moon before, now that we've developed a bunch of rockets, I think, these fixed price contracts make a lot more sense and actually incentivize these companies to be competitive in price. And we saw, Boeing came out with a statement saying they no longer want to take any fixed price contracts because they weren't able to make profit off of it, which is, kind of the point of them, that you want the company to have some skin in the game, if you will. So I think that's definitely over. And I do think in general, some of the more legacy makers like Boeing, Lockheed are probably not going to be launching for that much longer. I mean, we see even a company like Northrop has basically all but acquired Firefly Aerospace for their first stages for the upcoming Antares block upgrade. So I think we'll see just a lot more of these new space companies dominating the game, since they've shown they can make a more competitive product.
Yeah, but also, in the sense of Northrop Grumman with that particular vehicle, I mean, that started off way back as Morton Thiokol, then ATK, then Orbital ATK, then Orbital Sciences, and Northrop Grumman.
Yeah.
So that vehicle's kind of gone through a bunch of different company names and companies over the years, but yeah. And then I'd rather be flying an X-Wing, talking about Maya Space, saying, will Maya Space let me choose my own background and have custom music? As long as you know HTML.
Boy.
That wasn't me. Hey, someone else made the pun on that, but props to
I
you
know,
for
It
that.
took me like
But you
way too long
encouraged
to
them.
get it.
I love it. Anyway, I think that's the perfect way to pivot away from this topic and move on to our next topic. So we've talked about propane and liquid oxygen. We've talked about kerosene and liquid oxygen. I think now it's time to talk about methane or methane and liquid oxygen. So, Trevor, what's going on in the world of methalox?
Yeah, a lot. Right, as we've seen now, we're kind of entering the era of methane. So we had, Terran 1 launch from the US, it launched once and then they decided they're no longer going to launch it anymore. And that kind of showed the world, at least the West, the beauty of methane. And then, of course, now we've had 2 Starship launches with the beautiful plume behind me of methane. And then, well, thankfully not that close to me. And then we also have China launching Zhuku, which it's coming up on its 3rd flight, and that's a methane-based rocket. But this week, there were a lot of other steps met. Vulcan is currently scheduled to launch on Christmas Eve, December 24th, and that is slowly getting ready. That has the BE-4 engines on the first stage, which run on liquid methane and liquid oxygen. And just this week, the Centaur 5 second stage was integrated atop the booster, completing the initial buildup of Vulcan for the CERT-1 mission. So there you can see ULA installing the second stage on top of the first stage of Vulcan. Again, that's supposed to launch December 24th. I personally think it's probably going to delay until after the holidays, but ULA is pushing very hard for a launch this year, so we'll see what happens. Then also this week, Blue Origin got the Escapade mission for their, which will launch atop of New Glenn, and that's scheduled to launch in 2024. Once again, we'll have to see if Blue Origin is able to meet that timeline, but we'll see. And here on screen, you can see ULA doing the flight readiness firing of Vulcan. This was a few months ago, where they conducted a static fire at the pad, similar to what we see SpaceX do. And then finally this week, we got big news out of China, where Landspace has the 3rd launch of their Zhuku 2 rocket this week. And that was the first methane rocket to both reach space and the first methane rocket to reach orbit on its 2nd flight, which was exciting. I think it's kind of the forgotten methane rocket. Harry Stranger, who spies on everything from space, spotted the vehicle's, what's the word? The piece that they use to simulate the Pathfinder, thank you, out at the pad, which generally signifies that they're about a month away from launch. At least in previous launches, it signified that. So that launch should be happening probably in a few weeks now, if not a little bit less than that. And then finally, the same company, Landspace, announced Zhuku 3, an upgraded version of the vehicle that you see on screen right now, which is going to be a massive upgrade. It's going to go from a small sat launcher to a Falcon 9 SAS class vehicle. I believe it's going to be capable of putting 20 tons into low Earth orbit when it's expendable, and something around 15 or 16 when being recovered, which they have 2 recovery methods, also like Falcon 9. There'll be RTLS, which will take the payload capacity down to about 12 tons. And then when recovered downrange, it'll be on the order of 16 tons, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's a big time for liquid methane powering rockets.
I think the hardest part of all of this isn't figuring out how to use Methalox, it's figuring out how to pronounce, what is it, Juki 2? Alex, help?
I think it's Yuka, something like that. I know we're right about that rocket a few times on Twist and This Week in Spaceflight. We actually talked about all of this stuff on the latest episode, but I never able. I'm also not the guy that needs to pronounce it. It's always Alicia, or lately it's been Ryan, because vacations basically. But definitely something that I've never tried to pronounce, to be honest. It's a bit complicated, but we try.
Yeah,
the people that actually have to say them, they do their homework to be able to pronounce it properly, so we can respect.
Yeah, for those who are fluent in Chinese, I am sorry.
Yes. I guess specifically Mandarin, but yeah. Um, and by the way, NASA spaceflight officials saying, rumor has it Harry has more spy satellites than SpaceX has Starlinks, which is very possible. He has some of the best stuff there, especially getting down to see everything with Blue Origin. We have our Cape Cam now that has a great view of Blue Origin too, so it's interesting to see all of this coming along. We've got, again, the era of Methalux with the big runs. You've got, hopefully,
One thing
New Glenn.
that happened this week as well, Stephen Marr went out there and saw New Glenn's fairing, and Harry as well confirmed from the air that it was not just one single half pointed in the right direction. It was a complete fairing sitting in vertical position. And then later, I think it was either the day after or 2 days after, we saw the fairing being put inside of the hangar, where we also believe there might be the first and second stage simulators that are used for handling, testing the handling of the rocket and things like that. Maybe I speculated on Twitter that maybe they're preparing to have a full stack with all of these simulators. Might not be super pretty because especially the second stage simulator is like just a truss of metal, but maybe they're trying to get a handle, no pun intended, on how to be able to do all of that. So I don't know. It might be, and maybe they share some information about this, or maybe because they're Blue Origin they don't. Who knows? But definitely very very interesting. Again, that escapade mission, they want to launch it as soon as August of next year. I'm skeptical about that, but hey, they can try, right? Try me. Prove me wrong. I'm not gonna be complaining if New Glenn actually launches next year.
There's no such thing as no pun intended on a NASA spaceflight stream.
We're always intending the puns, right?
Yes, and you are allowed to take one of my pun tokens for that, so it's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, and there, of course, as we look at Vulcan, that's been the much anticipated, long awaited vehicle, especially I'm looking forward to the variant with 6 solid rocket motors on it, in addition to hopefully seeing that gorgeous methane plume coming out from underneath it. It's very interesting just to see what's been going on with that. And then, of course, you've got the Centaur 5 upper stage that I believe that just arrived at the Cape there. So you had that came by the rocket ship to now be attached to the rocket, I guess. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in the world of Methalux. Now, the real question is, as mentioned, the current launch date is December 24th at stupid o'clock in the morning. So it's the morning of Christmas Eve. We know ULA, we know first flights are always, again, just that, first flights. They're experimental. It's very rare that new rockets launch on their very first attempt. Not unheard of, see Falcon Heavy, but what do you think? Do you think we will see a launch this year?
Oh.
That's what Philip Howell's asking. Trevor? Trevor, we'll have you go first. What do you think? When will Vulcan launch?
I think probably Q1 next year. The late December, especially around holidays this far out, and they've been saying it for so long, just kind of screams a little bit of a delay. And also I could see, because, if they push one day, then you start getting into Christmas and then New Year, and I assume ULA's employees want to have time off. So it just seems way too easy for them to end up in early January for a launch. But then for the other part of the question of will it go first try, I honestly think it's probably like pretty 50-50. Right, this vehicle at this point is,
Either
even though it hasn't launched.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's fair, even though it hasn't flown, they've done a good bit of testing on it. As we were showing earlier, they did the test firing of it earlier this year, which is where they did a fairly long duration burn of the BE-4 engines. And then they've also, done wet dress rehearsals and whatnot. in the SRBs, they've flown already a similar variant on Atlas. So, yeah, I would say 50-50 for if it goes first try.
Yeah, I will say probably similar, that it's probably basically toss of a coin kind of thing. And I believe they're also planning on another wet dress rehearsal, so they're gonna have the opportunity to at least be able to perhaps eliminate all of the problems with the rocket and the pad systems. Because remember, the last time that they did a wet dress rehearsal was, I think, around April was the last time, maybe March. Someone might correct me on chat, but whatever. What I'm trying to say is that it's been a very long time since the last time that booster at least has been fueled on the pad. The second stage is new. It's not the same one that they used on when they fired the engines. They had the booster and the upper stage, so they're gonna be rolling this out to the pad, fueling it, and doing a countdown rehearsal and everything. So maybe if there's some problems, they can already figure them out and be able to solve them way before the actual launch date. I believe they're targeting early December from what Tori Bruno has said. So maybe we see a rollout in the next few days and then that test happening maybe in the next week or two. If it's early December, they may have like another 2 weeks to work out all of the part of putting the payload on top and everything, because they're gonna have to roll it back to the vertical integration facility, put the payload fairing with the payload on board, and roll it out to the pad and prepare everything for launch. Definitely seems like that might give them enough time now that they have already the Centaur on top of the booster. Who knows though? Maybe some problem will pop up. Either way, they have 3 days. It's not just the 24th. They also have the 25th and the 26th to try a launch. So good chances are that if they don't discover any issue with the booster or the central upper stage or any other system, they might just go ahead and be able to launch on these holidays. But as as Trevor said, maybe it delays. So we'll see what happens.
And you made a good point there. I think that's worth mentioning, was that they did that first static fire there, that you had the Centaur upper stage, the new one up there ready to go. And then during a test, there was a RUD, a rapid unscheduled disassembly, of one of those upper stages. So as a result, they figured out what went wrong and realized, okay, we have to make some modifications. So the one that was going to be going for, I believe it was the second regular flight, so the third flight, was then shipped out to the Cape with the modifications. And then the first one that we originally saw went back to Decatur, Alabama, for it to then be upgraded with those changes and then fly again on a different flight from this one. So they've had those issues too to deal with. So hopefully it'll actually go as expected and planned during the I guess holiday couple days there. My guess, we'll have a couple of attempts, but hopefully during that first window, we finally get to see this rocket fly.
There you can see the Pathfinder. I think that was last year when they did all of that testing with the Pathfinder. They did some tanking tests of the booster, first with liquid oxygen, then look at methane, and then they loaded both. Kind of reminded me of later when we saw the same with the Starship with a full stack as well. That was very, very interesting. But yeah, that was pretty much the first Vulcan that we saw on the pad, but it was just the booster. There was no upper stage, and it was mostly for handling and also testing the pad systems. But yeah, definitely very, very interesting, and we'll see what happens. They have time. I think with the Centaur already stacked, they may have enough time to be able to work out any sort of issues, obviously, as long as they are small issues, obviously.
Also, the fact that it's on railroad tracks then lifted by a crane, I think they've already found the path, so I think that's a terrible name. I love having
boy.
Alex on streams because he
everyone.
actually laughs at my stuff.
I have a very easy laugh, to be honest. It's more like, oh my god, where am I? How did I come here? Please, someone save me.
Ouch. Okay, fine, you host then. Good luck.
No. I'll leave it to you.
Fair enough. All right, let me hit some support here, because at this point, support for me is dwindling. So let's get the support for NSF going here. Jerwa, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Jim Cavett, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Love seeing those names again. Merry Old Elf, without any message, but still with the support, which is greatly appreciated. And then Joey, using tips.nasaspaceflight.com, saying thank you. Well, thank you for watching as well. So right back at you. And then we got some people getting some items from the store here. Andrew, getting a couple things. First saying, seriously, please give us bigger mugs. Pretty, please. And then also adding that, getting one of the metal prints there, it looks like. And then also saying that S26 is best Starship. I can't believe I read that out loud.
That's just wrong.
I'm with Alex. You've got 3 people here for once. No fight mode needed. We all agree. S26, boo. And then Andrew also making a point for those who haven't seen Jack's updated look, saying Jack missed a great opportunity to grab a string tie and be Rocket Colonel Sanders. So, yeah, the mustache he's got going now is quite unique. But also getting the L2 membership, which I know Crispy loves when we talk about it, and I love being on L2. For those who don't know, that is an additional part of our NASA Spaceflight forum, which you have the free portion of the forum, and then there is L2, which has some exclusive pictures, videos, images, documents, some of which you won't find anywhere else on the internet. A lot of people that we had back in the day taking pictures during some of the shuttle events, things like that. It is absolutely a fantastic resource. I've used it many times when looking up stories and things. So definitely, if you're not sure, go check out one of those L2 memberships, get some of the awesome parts of the forum. And just a reminder, when you do sign up, you must already have a username in the free portion of the forum. So go ahead and grab that. And then when you sign up, make sure you put that name that you already have in the thing of, hey, here's what my username was, so you get access to all the L2 goodies. I mean, just look at some of the stuff. You get access to the flyover pictures that we had. You've got some there from McGregor. You get early access to some of the other pictures from all of our flyover escapades, including at the Cape, which there's one coming up soon. So if you're not a member and you want to see all of that, make sure you're ready for it.
Leak.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, spoiler, you heard it here first. ASC flyover coming soon, but yeah. And of course, we have all the other fantastic items, such as the metal prints, including all the brand new ones from the second integrated flight tests. You've got, like, the ones that are behind some of our presenters right now. You've got some of the crazy mock diamonds. You've got the views of the vehicle up close. You've got the gorgeous orange color of that one. I love that. Showing that sunrise liftoff. There is the special mock diamond, which does come with a little warning on it that it may be a little on the noisier side for the size, but it's such a historic image that we could not put it on there. It's absolutely beautiful. You've got the rocket in flight, some of the tiles kind of falling off, but still gorgeous views of it. Again, all of this, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, definitely worth having on your wall, some of these metal prints. And then, of course, we also have some of the holiday sweaters. We've got mugs, we've got hats, we've got some of your IFT2 patches if you still want. And a reminder, as you've seen, anything that you do get in the shop, while we are live on the air, we will be able to read it as a message. But, oh, come on. Ship 26 is the best ship. Really, Kevin? Really?
Kevin, no, you're wrong. You're wrong.
We need
Everyone
fight
now
mode
in
with Kevin.
Yeah, so instead of
Kevin,
boo
put
ship
us in fight
26,
mode
we
with you.
need boo Kevin now in the chat.
Yeah, how do
Yeah.
how do I find you here on stream? No, but it needs to be you. Okay.
Well, anyway. Kevin.
We should be careful of booing Kevin now. He has all of the power right now.
True. Yeah, he's the one running the stream today, Kevin Michael Reed, so that could be an issue. Anyway, let's continue along, ignoring Ship 26 is not so much love for it. We have the love coming for some of these apparently last of the V1 starships now that we've seen, especially in the daily today with the Starship shuffle going on. So where are we at now with this V1, V2 deal for Starship?
Well, that is a great question because I will say it came as a surprise, but it also wasn't, because there were already sort of like indications that they were going into something new. So you can see there that tweet from Elon, or an X post, whatever you want to call it, from Elon talking about 4 more starships, the last of V1, referring to version 1 of a starship, basically the kind of a starship that we have seen so far. The other thing that he also mentioned is what version 2 will entail. And that's when things go into more of a, oh boy, that transition, into more a speculation side of things, because he doesn't go into details. He just says the ship holds more propellant, reduces dry mass, and improves reliability, which, to be honest, are very vague concepts. There are many ways for the ship to hold more propellant. There are many ways of reducing the dry mass of the ship, or even what means reducing the dry mass. Like, does it mean relative to the whole vehicle? Does it mean relative to the wet mass, basically with a propellant on board? Like, what does it really mean reducing the dry mass? Is it just the absolute dry mass, or is a relative term, right? That's an important thing. And then the improvement of reliability, that's another thing that it's super global and super vague, doesn't really give you much of, yeah, it's going to be better, okay, but in which way, right? So yeah, on the latest daily that we have had, you can see all of the shuffling of all of the vehicles. That is, I believe, ship 30, if I'm not mistaken, because it has, you can see the way that I can distinguish them is ship 30. You can see here that tilt. It has a lot of the tiles already completed. A little bit are missing yet. Those, it's not that they're missing because they fell off. It's just because they haven't got to install them. And then also the nose cone as well. They have basically removed the crane lifting points, and they have put a plate on top of them. So that's ship 30, and that's the one that they're working on. That shot is ship 28, just like the lower third says. It basically was removed from the engine's installation stand and was rolled out to the high bay, and right now they're working on the high bay. On one of the corners that they use, that corner in particular is the one where they work on the tiles of the ship. Basically, they have like 4 corners. One of them they stack. The other one, once the vehicle is already stacked, they work on the leeward side of the ship, and then on the other corner they rotate the vehicle and they put it with a heat shield facing the corner, and they have like a scaffolding and things like that where they can work on the tiles. And so then you can see that vehicle arriving, or might have been, yeah, that's ship 28. Yeah. And so that's ship 28 arriving, and you can see there all the scaffolding on that corner of the high bay. As you know, on that tilt, you can see all of the scaffolds and the conduits and everything for the people to be able to operate. And there you can see them sort of what is it, wiping them. It's sort of like they want them clean the area so that they can able to install all the tiles and everything. Definitely a lot of work on that heat shield. A lot of people said ship 25 had many tiles falling, and the main reason is because SpaceX didn't really care that much to have a proper, well cared off heat shield system, whereas ship 28 on the other hand is being taken care of. You see it here, they're working on the tiles. They have had many tests on them to make sure that they can be fixed during flight and they don't fall off. And those that they fail, then they're replacing them with better adhesive and things like that, and ways to put them better on the vehicle. So I think I went through all of the V1 vehicle sort of movements. You can see there it's like some sort of gang being like, shh, we're planning world domination, guys. Kind of thing. But yeah, you have the ship 32 on one corner is hidden out of view because it's already being stacked. Ship 29 on the other, ship 28 on the other corner, and then ship 30, 31 has been sent to the rocket garden. Many vehicles out there being shuffled around, but these are going to be the last of the version 1 of a Starship. And again, we saw those comments from Elon on what version 2 entails. And again, they are very general comments, so the changes could be anything. Again, more propellant could be like 3 different things that can come up right now to my head. I don't know, reduced dry mass, is it absolute or relative, right? It's like, so yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but definitely maybe those ships are going to be coming up soon, or at least we're going to see some vehicle sections appear on the ring yard.
And I should bring it up because I've seen a couple people talk about it in chat, that we should say Starship version 2 more so than the V2 rocket, considering that already existed by a certain German group that we don't like, that was designed by Werner von Braun. So we'll stick with Starship V2, just to be clearer on that then.
And before we go into more stuff, I will also say I'm very curious what a booster V2 looks like. So you only talk about version 2 of the ship, but a booster version 2, how do you change this to be able to launch that modified Starship, right? Like, what things are going to be changing on the booster? Maybe the engine count? Because you have more thrust and you don't need as many engines? Who knows? Or maybe the chines change or something. I don't know, right? So we'll see what happens.
Very convenient having that picture behind you to make it work.
Yeah, right? It's almost like I can point things out.
Another thing that I think is worth going into, that I think a lot of what SpaceX has been busy doing at Starbase is retrofitting these older vehicles now that they have data from flight. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of V2 is also just, we want to be done with these retrofits and let's take all of these lessons and apply them cleanly to newer boosters and newer ships, just to make the build process go quicker and help reduce the amount of retrofits that need to be done to these vehicles.
Yeah, it's a good point. Again, even though these are the last of the V1s now that we know of it, or the version 1s of Starship, you know, it's interesting to see all the changes that they're still actively making. So that's interesting. And part of those changes may have to come from this question, which I think it's worth just acknowledging where we're at with this. Nick Dark asking, is the FAA running another mishap investigation following IFT2? And Trevor, the answer to that, I believe, is yes.
Yes. So one of the requirements for the FAA to conduct a mishap investigation report is that the flight does not go as planned, more or less. And since SpaceX was planning to reach that, what I believe is about 200 by 50 kilometer orbit or something along those lines, and have the first stage splash down just off the Gulf of Mexico, because the two vehicles did not do that, they immediately triggered an investigation report. And I believe another requirement is that any loss of vehicle prior to the vehicle's planned demise, which in this case was also true since both the vehicles were terminated before they would have blown up anyway. Both of those things triggered an investigation report. However, this is very standard, and you have to conduct these. So we can expect them to be significantly quicker than the first one went, because the flight went way better. There'll probably be fewer corrective items, and the Fish and Wildlife Service won't have to get involved this time, since nothing will have to be changed on the ground pad. So it'll just be an investigation of what happened during the flight, what caused the failures, what fixes they can make in the future to make sure these don't happen again.
Yes, thank goodness for the steel plate actually doing its job there, helping to protect the stage 0 words. There we go.
Yeah, and also it's worth reminding people that this is an investigation that is done in collaboration with SpaceX. So generally how these work is SpaceX will come up with a list of corrective actions, and they'll submit it to the FAA, and we'll be like, we experienced these problems during our flight, and to fix these problems, we are going to implement these changes. And the FAA says either, yes, we agree to those, or no, we think you need to do something else. So emphasizing that it's SpaceX-led is important.
Exactly. Now, this is an interesting thought, and this was one of the first thoughts I had as well when they were talking about Starship V2. I've got two questions here that tie in with each other, so Alex, I'll put this one to you. Matrix asking, could this version 2 now have the 6 RVACs? And along those lines, Astro 3DI wondering, do you think if we have those 6 RVAC engines, do you think they are needed to increase the average ISP and increase thrust to reduce time to orbit, hence greater delta V and less work done against gravity? Especially given, that when we had the 3 and 3 on this flight, it didn't necessarily make it all the way, which doesn't mean it's the engine's fault. It's just obviously it didn't get into its planned orbit there. So Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely it does improve basically when you have all 9 engines, you can reach orbit faster, which means there's less to be lost to gravity losses and things like that. So you basically have more efficiency, but you also are adding engines, which means that you're basically increasing the dry mass of the ship. So which is why I'm like, when Elon talks about reducing the dry mass, I'm mostly sure he's talking about relative dry mass, meaning things like it has more propellant, but adding more propellant doesn't increase the ratio of like dry mass to wet mass. Basically, you add dry mass, but that dry mass is not as much as you would have to add for the amount of wet mass that you're adding, basically all of the propellant that you're adding. So by that what I mean is that obviously you're adding 3 extra engines, and those engines are not, they are not massless. They are very, very heavy. And so so you have 3 extra engines. They give you more thrust, but if you don't have more propellant, it's a bit bogus, because it's like the delta V equation doesn't really work that well. It is true, though, that you don't have a lot of gravity losses. What I think is, if they do both, if they not only increase the thrust, but also increase the propellant, which Elon has already mentioned, then you have a very good combo there where you can have even more payload into orbit, because you not only have less gravity drag, but you also are able to carry more propellant for the same sort of amount of total thrust to weight ratio kind of thing, right? Because if you add I don't know, maybe 300 tons, to put a number on it, a very speculative number. I'm not saying that's the amount that they're going to add, but say it's 300. That's maybe like an RVAC and a little bit of a change, right? But you're adding two more instead of just 1. You're adding 3 in total. So you're like 2 more in thrust in terms of the amount of engines than the amount of propellant that you add. So your thrust to weight ratio will be larger. Your time to orbit will be shorter. And therefore, you're not going to have as much gravity losses as if you had kept only the 3 RVACs and the 3 center engines. And so overall, you have an increase on the performance from having more propellant, but also you have more thrust, because you're adding 3 engines instead of just adding maybe 1 or 2 or something like that. You add more engines, and these engines might be also with upgraded thrust, because we also have seen Elon talking about a potential Raptor 3 in the horizon. So maybe these engines are also going to be upgraded. Instead of being 230 tons of thrust, maybe they are 270, which means it is even more thrust, which means it takes even less time to reach orbit, which means it is more efficient to get into orbit, and more performance, more payload to orbit, all of the things. And that is quite good, because we want more payload to orbit. That's a good thing.
Upgrade all the things, yes. and that's the thing. I've also seen people in chat talking about the potential of the upgrades for those Raptor V3s. Trevor, do you think that might be something that we finally get to see as well on the, at least Starship, V2 and maybe soon, actually, hopefully, on future boosters?
I'm really not sure what to think because it seems early for SpaceX to already be switching to ships and boosters that would have this upgraded engine design. However, SpaceX moves extraordinarily quickly, and it's very possible that they are in fact ready for prime time. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm a CU student. Um, um, so I think probably not. I suspect that could be another, iteration further down the line, just like how so far in the V1 Starships or whatever you want to call them, we've seen enormous changes be made. So the other thing to consider is I feel like it probably makes more sense to use these or put these upgraded engines on booster instead of ship first, because if you could reduce the number of engines on the booster, that seems like far more advantageous than putting them on ship. Right? Speculation is that with Raptor 3, they could go down to either 29 or 30 engines on the first stage, which would be a fairly significant reduction in complexity. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And I suspect if they would be switching to Raptor V3 already, they would, or Elon would have mentioned that Starship V2 would have Raptor V3 on his post on X.
And what I think is the coolest part of all of this is that NSF kind of predicted this. In particular, Alex, you were kind of predicting some of this.
Yeah, we actually had a recent Starbase update video where I actually talked about, it was Jack, but it was through me because I sort of wrote the whole thing. And so it was very, very interesting because it's not something that we tend to get a lot of times, where it's sort of like the signs were there, but it was a bit hard to put all the pieces together until we were able to fly this week and saw these nose cone from basically ship 33, the ship 33 nose cone being scrapped basically. And so that is interesting because that would mean that that vehicle is being skipped, but there's a bit of an edge there, which is it is not being scrapped the nose cone itself, not only just the nose cone, but also the flaps of the nose cone, which is interesting because on previous times, more like the previous time, because it was just singular, the previous time they had to scrap a nose cone of a vehicle that was, during construction, that was being done with the flaps being reused on later vehicles. In this case, it was Ship 22 was scrapped, and both the aft flaps and the forward flaps were handed over to future vehicles, in this case, Ship 28 and Ship 29. And so these vehicles are having those flaps. The problem is Ship 33, these flaps are not being, they're not being reused because they are also being scrapped. And the last time we saw that kind of thing was with SN16. If you remember, SN16 was going to be the one after SN15, but they decided to just not keep flying those types of vehicles, and they went ahead, doing ship 20, 21, 22, etc., etc. That is sort of the orbital vehicle, the orbital Starship kind of thing that now we know and love, and we see every single day. But the difference here is that with SN16, when it was scrapped, the flaps will also the flaps were also scrapped, and they were not reused on any other vehicle because they change. Those flaps change design with Ship 20. They have been kept mostly more or less the same across the whole, all of the vehicles. Many things have changed all over, like structures and the shielding on the engines and things like that. But the flaps themselves have been kept mostly the same since Ship 20. So them being scrapped on Ship 33 kind of gave us the idea that there was some kind of change coming up soon after that. And we posted about that on that video where we talked about the potentiality, that these vehicles were not going to be around anymore in the sense of the way that we see them right now, and maybe that implies also a change on the flap design, which is Not something that I want to see, to be honest. We'll see.
Why not? Because I mean, you had actually we had Sam Cox who was asking about the flap position change. Why don't you want to see a change?
Oh man, if they change and it's the one that is like to the leeward side or something like that, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to look at that. It's a bit. It's probably like Ship 26, but worse. Because at least Ship 26 probably not gonna fly, whereas these ships are gonna be flying for sure. And so it's like, I'm not sure.
Wow, that is low praise. It's worse than Ship 26. Holy smokes. Oh boy. Anyway, continuing along here.
Jax is saying worse than 26. Yes, Jax, it is worse than 26 because we're actually gonna see it in flight. That's the problem.
Wow.
I see him.
My goodness, the hate here. Jeez. Anyway, while we're talking about speculation then for version 2, again, speculation. Trevor, I'll put this one to you. Jelmer asking, do you think we'll finally see the cargo bay in version 2?
I suspect version 2 will have a better idea of how they'll implement the cargo bay. However, I don't think we'll see an actual cargo bay for some time still. I think it's pretty clear at this point that SpaceX's priority is, first of all, they just need to get a ship into orbit. And then once they've done that, then they'll start using the Starlink cargo bay that they have made, which is basically just a Pez dispenser that pushes out satellites. And then once they are successfully flying with that, then I can see them starting to care about how do we actually deploy other satellites from this rocket. And right, that'll probably be the chomper design that we've seen before, where the top shell comes up and then the payload can like tilt out and be pushed out. But it seems still a bit early for that, especially since the priority will be Starlink to start.
Oh, the Moonraker style. So I'm kind of excited for that sort of open and closed deal, which is necessary for the reusability portion of it, but it's just going to look so cool. Now, what's also interesting is we're not just seeing upgrades to the ships here, but we still have the potential for a new tower at Starbase as well, right, Alex?
Alex is having unmuting problems.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah,
I was just making sure it wasn't my sound there.
No. It was my end. That it's complicated because right now I'm doing something here. I'm not even sure if it's gonna work, but yeah, we have these new tower segments that have appeared on Starbase at the Sanchez slot, and yes, I'm doing illustration. That is a surprise.
It's purple.
That's why it took a little bit of time to unmute myself because my whole computer is right now a little bit going on pedals. But yeah, because I'm sending lots of things to the computer. But yeah, right now we have seen those tower sections. More like the tower columns arriving, but these are not the only hardware that we've seen. We also have these little piece there. We have these little 4 boxes here, a lot of beams and things like that have arrived. All of these parts basically for tower section that is going to be built here. In fact, I think if I scroll a little bit down on this picture, maybe I'll take a bit to get to that point though. You can kind of see here a little bit the squares for where they build the columns there, where they stack it. Oh wait, hold up.
Oh, it's just a little delayed. That's
it's
all.
also the first time that I'm doing this, so you're gonna have to bear with me. Come on.
We now have Alex art though.
Yeah, there we go. Now it's sending. Those 4 squares there, I probably should have started with that view. But yeah, you can see there that's sort of the place where they're gonna put those columns and put everything together. Now these columns, they are not just for one section of the tower, of the new tower that's gonna be built here. This little section that I pointed out before, if you remember, there is like sort of in the top of the tower, there's this sort of section here. more or less. I'm drawing it very badly, but there's like a beam in the center where they put all of those pulleys for the chopstick carriage to be able to go up and down the tower. And in that central beam, there's one section here in the corner that is like some kind of holding the beam at the end. That is this piece over here that we see there on that section. So this is not just for, because these columns are for section 8 that we call, that is the one right below. The other one is for the top of the tower. And so you have there the pieces for the 2 top sections of a tower. Now, where have we seen that before? We have seen that at Roberts Road at Kennedy Space Center. We have actually talked about this on the latest Starbase update as well, with the help of Harry Stranger with his synthetic aperture radar satellite images from Umbra Space. And there we explain how, we haven't done yet that KC flyover. We'll have it soon. But in the meantime, we can use those satellites to be able to, track all of these things. And in particular, we see that these columns were there in October when we last flew, but they are not there in November images from the satellite. And so these pieces have disappeared, and suddenly they are here at Starbase. Oh my gosh, right? So there could be the case that all of the other segments that they built, if you remember, there was like another kind of tower that they were building there for Starship. They had already 7 sections. The 8th and the 9th section were not built. Those are the pieces for the 8th and 9th tower section. So at some point in the future, we might see those tower sections that are already prefabricated at Roberts Road at Kennedy Space Center coming all the way down here, maybe by barge. So keep an eye on Space Coast Live, because that'll probably prop up there on the Kennedy camps. And so, they're gonna come all the way here to Starbase and build another tower. Now, let's see if I can do the other thing that I wanted to do, which is show more or less the status of. See, this is the problem, that I have to push a lot of buttons here, and it is very complicated. So it is also a very big picture, let's be honest, because these pictures, you can see them on the member areas and L2 and things like that. But basically, we have a very big photo from Jack that he took on the latest flyover video, where you can see the south side of the launch site is not developed. If they want to have this tower at Starbase, it's going to take a bit of time, because that area has not been cleared at all, and we really need to see that in order for them to be able to build that launch tower. And so it's going to take a while, and while we're going to have new vehicles and new versions and everything, it's probably going to be a bit until we get to the point of seeing a second tower. But the pieces are already in the way.
There we go. Now, the real question. Can you draw a giraffe like Das?
Oh my god.
It needs competition, seems like.
Let me see.
This is why everyone
Oh my
tunes
God.
in, just for
No, I cannot do
our
it.
drawing of giraffes.
I'm not even sure if I'm sending the correct thing, because it's there we go. That's the tank farm expansion that they're also going to be doing over here. That is not the thing that I wanted to show. Oh my god.
So I think
See, I need to
DAS's
learn all
job
of
with
this
DAS Art is
stuff.
safe for now.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but man, it's really complicated. But at least I tried. Hey, I tried. Yeah,
There you
that is
go.
part of also the extension. I guess I could talk about this as well. That is part of the tank farm expansion that they are doing. Not fully sure if that's gonna coming up on the 3rd flight of a Starship, or maybe when they launch those Starship version 2, because it's gonna take a long time to bring all of the tanks and everything and plug everything in. So we're gonna have to see what happens. But yeah, I wanted to show another thing, but it's too complicated. This thing just runs on pedals like a bike. Need to run like a Tesla. Come on.
The hamsters are struggling to keep the wheel going to power it, yeah. Here's an interesting question, because I know obviously we've got the gorgeous pictures of everything with those mock diamonds. And we've talked about the mock diamonds, but I do want to bring it up that we saw that mega mock diamond with the Starship flight test here. In fact, it's behind you, Trevor, so I'll put the question to you. Zizik's asking, does anyone have a good explanation for the mega diamonds? I get why they form from a single nozzle, but why do they form from multiple nozzles?
I don't think I have a great explanation for it, but I will comment that the exhaust on this flight, to me at least, almost looked like what I would expect from an aerospike engine. So I I wonder, and this is pure conjecture, if there's some weird plume interaction happening between the rings of engines that kind of acts as like a wall. That kind of causes some of these aerospike like effects. And then from there, if it's you have some of those weird plume interactions, I could somewhat understand why it would combine into these big mock diamond shapes, since it would be basically like the exhaust from an aerospike engine. Um, but that is pure conjecture, and I do kind of want to look more into it. Alex, you're also a physics major. Do you have anything to
Oh
add?
boy. I'm not, but okay. I'm not
You were.
sure what to do. Okay, sure. Let's discuss that later. But I'm not fully sure why is case. I think it's maybe because all of the interactions sort of like calm down. Because I think there was I'm not sure who actually was, but I know it's an important guy that works on all of this stuff. Basically, he explained that you could see the individual Mach diamonds from the engines, and then basically they seem to converge, like they add up. It's sort of like in wave theory, when you add up waves and they have like this
Superposition.
this pattern, exactly like the superposition when they have constructive interference, but obviously they don't seem to have destructive interference here. So you only have like this pattern where they come in, they then span away again, and then you have again another Mach diamond below. Yeah, there you go. So you see how they come all the way down there and they meet on the middle, and then again they expand. And it is quite interesting because obviously all of that is the not only the interactions between the engines but also the atmospheric pressure shaping it all. Because as you can see on the video, as the rocket ascends, you can see the plume expanding, but it still has a bit of that Mach diamond. And basically, the mega Mach diamond disappears on the lower parts of the plume and starts to expand so much that eventually disappears completely. But it's definitely very, very interesting. I guess you can see one of them somewhere around here. Oh my gosh, I also need to work on this. But yeah, you can see there, and as it ascends, it expands, and so that the ones lower disappear, the one here it starts to fade out, and eventually you don't get that Mach diamond anymore.
This may be recency bias, but I feel like Starship has by far the sexiest exhaust of any vehicle that's ever flown. Like the first flight, I remember I was like really disappointed because of all of the engine failures. I was like, oh, this isn't as cool as I was hoping, since we just had Terran 1 launch, which was stunning as well. And then during this last flight, I was like, holy cow, this exhaust is just mind blowing.
The sexiest rocket exhaust.
Do you
Okay, that's a
disagree?
new one. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just not something I would ever think of. You got me facepalming here.
It's return for all the times I facepalmed from your puns.
Touche, sir. Touche. We also had some questions that came in through Super Chat that I want to make sure we answer too. First off, Amtank saying, when cat? And it's okay, y'all can be wrong about 26. Oh, we're not. And second, he's sleeping in the bed off camera that way. So he's here, it's just not on camera. Here's an interesting one from John Depker. Again, name we see here quite often, but wondering, what are the thoughts on aerogel being used as the thermal protection system instead of the ceramic tiles or, the tough rock that they're using now? Trevor, aerogel heat shield when?
Yeah, I think Vsauce has a video, or not Vsauce, Vertasium has a video on aerogel, and I don't really know anything about it, but presumably, you know, there's a reason why these heat tiles are have been somewhat constant, and they have to be durable not only under dynamic pressure but also under um, uh, the heat from the plasma buildup around it. So I'm just not sure what the properties of aerogel are well enough to be able to say if they would have similar properties that would be advantageous for reentry.
Yeah, from what I've seen, aerogel is very, very sensitive considering it's like 99% air. That seems like that would damage so much more than tough rock or anything like that. It was great. I know Hayabusa used it to capture pieces of a comet, but I don't know about for a heat shield. Matt coming in with a good reminder, saying don't forget the Black Friday sale on metal prints in the shop. So grabbing some metal prints there as well. Thank you for the reminder for that too. Here's one, John Burns saying NSF's Three Musketeers playing a blinder. By the way, great show. Thank you. This is all the way from Donegal in Ireland. I hope I'm saying that right. And there is that Black Friday sale, Metal Mania. I don't know why I did that. But there you go. And then hooray for hoodies. So whoever wrote these titles, I do like them very much, I gotta say. Wasn't me. It actually wasn't me. But yes, and then you've got the shirts. You've got that hot staging shirt, which I love. Perfect for Christmas, as it says. And Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and any other holidays that you may or may not celebrate. Musical Wolves saying, best guess for when Raptor 3 on vehicles. I'll go around to each of you quickly. When do you think? Alex?
Oh boy, another fight mode. Okay, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna be generous. I'm gonna say maybe that V2, that version 2 of Starship is gonna carry Raptor 3. Maybe not, who knows, but I think there's a good chance, at least, that it's gonna carry. So I guess, well, the question is when, not where. So maybe end of next year?
Trevor?
I'll leave it at there.
Trevor muted?
Yep, I
believe
was
so.
muted. Thank you, sir.
There we go.
I think late next year is pretty reasonable. It's really hard to speculate on these things because, first of all, we don't even know if, like Alex was saying, if Starship version 2 is going to have Raptor 3. And then we have, on top of that, we have no idea when Starship version 2 is going to fly. So it's like adding uncertainty on uncertainty. And at some point, I am not sure, but hopefully by the end of next year.
That's literally what people tune into us for, is for us to speculate this stuff. Again, all of it is pure speculation, but there are times, like with the Starbase update, where we're actually right. So we'll see. Hopefully even sooner than later. Hopefully that also means that we'll see all of the other ships already fly the finals of the version 1s before Q4 next year. Blake Alexander, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Really appreciated. We've got Anush saying, SCO buffs, Trevor. It's prime time. Hopefully you know what that means.
Prime time did not go very well.
Hey, it's the orbital giraffe! Look at that! DOS does have competition.
I did the giraffe. I didn't do it on stream, but I could do that here. So yeah, it approves the overall launch mount after the flight. It's the orbital giraffe.
Well, that goes along then with Anusha's question of saying, when do you expect booster changes to happen, or potentially any Falcon changes coming up? Alex? Sorry, Giraffe Man?
Oh, come on. Oh, Anush. I'm not fully sure we're gonna see any sort of major change to Falcon. But Starship definitely is the one to look for changes. Booster changes, I have no idea, to be honest. I do know that at one point Elon said that he wants the booster to stage as early as possible, in the sense that all of the effort that the booster does is just do a little bit of a jump to the ship to be able to keep it away from the orbital launch site and just put it up there into basically near space. And so maybe in the future we're gonna see boosters that are flying for less time to carry a bigger ship or something like that.
Yeah, and for Falcon, I don't expect many changes. Right now, I think we've already got Falcon 9 Block 5 V1.2.1 final use this version .pdf.
Someone says in the back channels that my giraffe needs a spot, so I guess I'm gonna have to add them.
Merry Old Elf, I'm going to put this one to you, Alex, saying
Okay.
they've launched 81 Falcon 9s this year. Do we know how many boosters that entails?
Ooh, I really haven't done the math on that, and I have my spreadsheet right in the front of me, but I don't
For
really keep
Falcon
track
9
of
and Falcon Heavy, it's 23
you do.
boosters so far this year.
There you go.
It is
Beautiful.
B1052, B1053, B1058, B1060, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81.
There you go.
Round of applause for that. Nicely done. Woo! With all the names there, too. Thank you.
Just off the top of my head, I definitely am not looking.
How many of those were flying on a new flight? Basically, they were not being reused.
8.
Okay, I have the same number. Good.
The spreadsheet masters, and here I am sandwiched in the middle. And then Juan saying, any speculation about what are the black quote-unquote boxes in the payload section of Ship 28, almost at the top? Either of you want to take the speculation? I gave Trevor the last speculation. Alex, you get to speculate this one.
I'm mostly sure that might have to do with maybe the antennas or something like that. Like they may be some sort of antennas, but I'm not fully sure. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's sort of like the other sort of 6 kind of hexagonal thingies that they have on the front of the nose cone. They have also those things there, which I'm not sure what they are for either. So I don't know. Maybe they are, pathfinding the antennas for V2. Maybe those were, those hexagonal thingies that look like tiles were the ones for these V1 version, the first version of a Starship, and maybe these are going to be the ones that are going to be on version 2, and they're sort of like, pathfinding them, so sort of doing a bit of testing on the earlier vehicles. We'll see.
That just means you'll have to stick around to NASASpaceflight and find out. So NSF will have you covered as we continue to track everything. And especially my co-hosts with me will be able to track a lot as well. So I do want to thank them for joining me. So Trevor Sesnick, thank you for joining us here on NSF Live.
Yeah, of course. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
And Alex, thank you as well for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure, and definitely having to try out the whole drawing thing. I think I'll have to get a more powerful computer to do all of that stuff, because I'm sending tons of things through all the wires and unwires, whatever. Yeah, very, very fun time that I have here with you guys.
You made the giraffe, and most importantly, it's purple. I want to thank the people.
I didn't choose red because I think that's the one that Das uses, and I don't want to get fired.
Good call. And I also have been corrected by Dr. Holly that it wasn't Moonraker, I mentioned earlier. It was the one from You Only Live Twice. So thank you for that. I do want to thank the people behind the scenes who made all of this happen as well. Of course, as we mentioned, despite his terrible take on Ship 26, we do love Kevin Michael Reed, who helped run this along with Jay Keegan. So 2 fantastic people behind the scenes, able to bring all of this to you. And the other reason we're able to bring all of this to you is because of support from viewers like you, and in particular those who are among our highest levels, who we always get to show their names here at the end of NASA Spaceflight Live. As you see there, our launch directors and flight engineers. It is with all of your help that we're able to have these 24/7 live cameras, able to bring you all these fantastic views, and of course be able to answer your questions and go through all of our spreadsheets and share the love with everyone. So thank you. And of course, just watching helps us a lot as well. So thank you so much, everyone out there, for watching today's show, liking, commenting, subscribing, the whole YouTube spiel. Thank you for all of it. We appreciate it. We'll be back, as always, next Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for another NSF Live. As always, we have our live cameras, though, 24/7 that you can watch, which is where we'll head over next to Starbase Live. Until that next episode, I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host. Later, nerds.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Fighting down to IFT off. Bring in SPD off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go. Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.